she said, be sure to use your mic, and I'm not even using my mic. We've got Carmen, Tiffany, John, Rachel. I just honestly have to say I'm pretty on. When they asked me to do this, I'm like, who, me? With these people? So I'm really honored. I'm a fan of all of your work and all of your shows, and so thank you, and congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just gonna start this off a little. There's, the stock questions, but I like to mix it up. So my first question is, I wanna know what you are watching right now.
Insecure, season 2.
Love it.
Love it.
Great.
But I'm also watching the HBO documentary with Jami and
Defiant Ones.
the Defiant Ones.
So good.
Love it. Tiffany?
Ozark.
Okay, yep.
Just finished Narcos last night.
Great.
I'm total Game of Thrones and Defiant Ones, which I'm almost done binging, which is amazing.
Binging. We love it, don't we? All right, so first of all, you all have been nominated and or have won an Emmy before, correct?
2.
That's pretty awesome. So there's that. Question for you. That's what I'm here to do. Okay. I want to know how you all got started in casting. What was the first thing that happened that you're like, oh, casting? Can you truncate at all?
Go ahead, Carmen.
The real way that I got started, minus the long story, is that honestly, I had been working on the documentary side of it, and I was sort of feeling like I was maybe done with that, and done with that version of it. And a friend said, "Oh, you should just try casting regular things, and that's how she said it, just regular things, scripted stuff. I know a casting director. You should meet her." And then she wouldn't hire me, and I harassed her, but she, eventually hired me, and that was that.
I was just going to go in the order.
Go ahead.
I graduated with a degree in directing from the North Carolina School of the Arts and moved to New York and wanted to get a job somewhere, whether agency, casting, something in the theater, to learn who the players were. And I had just seen Moulin Rouge 7 times. And so I answered an ad on Playbill.com to work as an assistant casting La Boheme, which was Puccini's opera, La Boheme, being directed by Baz Luhrmann. They wanted an opera person. I had seen half an opera. But I told them I have a degree in research, so what do you need me to know about opera? And they hired me. And that was at Telsey. And so I've stayed, and that's it.
That's worked out for you.
Yeah, exactly. It was a good one to go for.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell actors, don't you tell yourself no. Let us tell you no.
I went to New York for graduate school and got out of Circle in the Square, and realized I then, after my first commercial audition, had no business being. My soul just couldn't take it. I didn't have the ego to be an actor, and so after many years, I couldn't take the rejection. After, as you'll see during the night. After many years of running restaurants in New York and London and out here, I thought, what am I doing? And I knew I wanted to be back in the entertainment business, and casting felt like a really good fit for me, because it merged both creativity and being around actors and business. And so I started as a casting director at an assistant. I'll back up. I started as an intern at the Mark Taper Forum, and then went on to be assistants and independent casting directors, and that was that.
Awesome. Rachel?
And I went to New York University and knew that I was going to definitely do something in the industry. I just couldn't figure out what it was. And at that time, I was obsessed with Letterman, so I was positive I was going to be writing for Letterman, of course. And then Janice Panino, who ran the NBC Page Department, did not hire me. So I remember her name. I just want to say it out loud. So when Janice Panino did not hire me, I went back to Chicago afterwards, and I worked at a talent agency, and then an internship opened at a casting agency. I went there. They were doing Hudsucker Proxy. It's right when we got there. So that was like the first thing. And, you know, of course I loved it. And it was one of those odd moments, like in opportunities where it was like an internship, part-time, full-time, and I bought the company by 25. So I had a company in Chicago for 8 years, sold it. Ellen Chenoweth, who I'm sure you guys know, called and was like, oh, was talking to me, and I said, you know, I'm thinking about going to LA. And she said, you know, I'm about to do the Boys movie. Why don't you come out and be my associate? And so I came out here to do Intolerable Cruelty with her, and then, of course, loved it, sold my part, moved out here, and that's it.
Awesome. Phew.
Thank you.
So, can you tell us a little bit about how you think the casting process has changed, like for the shows you're nominated for, say casting the pilot? What do you think has changed over the years?
Well, okay, I can only tell you, okay, so what I've noticed things changing, certainly the content is way different than it used to be, certainly in television. You know, what you're working on now is so creatively fulfilling and exciting and tonally challenging. And you know, I'm sure you all, you know, obviously watch TV, so you know what the landscape looks like. So that's, I think, one of the big changes. And the other thing I've noticed, actually more in the business end of it, is how many more people are involved, more than it used to be. You know, how many more. And I'm kind of late to the whole, you know, I haven't done like a pilot season ever experience, and so I haven't really been part of some of these aspects of television that I think make people really great casting directors, because I think it's really intense and you can really make some great work out of it. But I have noticed that, like, the way the industry changes, I feel like there's a lot more people involved in decisions and the whole creative input altogether. So that's what I've noticed.
I'm confused about the question. Meaning that, how did it change between the pilot and then the series?
No, like
Or
over the years,
over the
casting
years?
Pilots, I've seen differences. I'm sure.
Right, so
you
this
have.
is an old timers question, is what you're saying.
Not at
Right,
all. I
right.
think.
I guess
I
it's me.
mean.
I guess it's me.
no, Okay. Fine.
You know, I've seen it change. I mean, it is dramatically in the stories that you're telling and the people that you get to work with. You know, having come basically out of a feature background and only doing features for so many years, I like to liken it that all my producer and director friends figured out they could make a shitload of money in television, and so they all migrated there. Unfortunately, I was drug along, or fortunately. And I think, you know, the difference is that you do have a lot of gods to serve. You know, there are a lot of people involved in the process, much more so than in features, mainly. You know, you sit in and one of the things I find challenging about it is that you sit in a room on features mostly with a director and a producer, and maybe you deal with the studio, I mean, mostly, and that's it. You know, and television, there are layers upon layers of people that you deal with. So I think it takes a lot of skill in trying to get everybody on the same page and on one vision of what you're trying to do. And that can be challenging. You know, it can also be really rewarding when it all starts to come together and you actually see that I actually persuaded 30 people to, you know, this point of view. But that is, I think that's the biggest change. I mean, certainly the material, and certainly the people that are now doing television, and you have an opportunity to cast. I mean, you know, when I first did television, there was a huge brick wall between, you know, who would and who wouldn't do TV. Right. And now that wall is pretty much gone. I mean, there's still, you know, holdouts. But you know, the storytelling is really amazing right now in television. So, you know, I think those are the big differences for me.
I think it's a numbers game. If you look at even 10 years ago, how many were there? 200 shows? Now there's 500 shows. And because the nature of television is to lock people down under contract with exclusivity, that was the standard way. I feel because there are just there's so much opportunity for actors, people are having to be more creative in the deal making. I feel like the deal making, I've had numerous times where I convinced the team, let's hire the person as a guest on the pilot, knowing we'll do an option for a series if we get picked up, because I know that show's not coming back. Do you know, like, you have to like keep your ear to the ground, have a sense of who might become available, where I feel like even 3 years ago, I could never have convinced during pilot season or on a network pilot to hire someone in a non-exclusive way and take that risk. Now I feel like we're having to have those conversations all the time in order to get the top talent.
I've also never done a traditional pilot season.
So lucky.
So I don't know. Well, I protect myself. It's not a good match for me, from what I hear. And I come from features also, but I have only been in TV for I think like 4 years. But in those 4 years, it's been obviously very dynamic. One of the things that I've noticed is also what Tiffany said, but another layer of that, which we were talking about before, is that so many people are on so many things. And so you really are having to juggle. Once you've even cast them, if you've done a trick deal, I feel like we're talking to each other much more than we used to, trying to help each other keep your actor on your thing and have them also work on ours. And I think the deals have changed. People who would have been series regulars, 4 years ago, are now doing 10 episodes of a 10-episode show as a guest star, also to give them this flexibility, but that's also complicated. Yeah. So that's the stuff I've noticed, and it's really ramped up very quickly. Yes. People that I think are obscure, or thought were obscure, when I read something, and I go, oh, it's going to be that person, and then you call to check their availability, and they're on some show you've never heard of, on some channel you've never heard of, and they're locked up for 7 years. And I'm like, what, him? Yeah. I thought he was my secret. Yeah. But there are no secrets anymore.
I know.
Everybody, all these
true.
smart people, we're all going after the same people, and there's too much context.
Rachel, for you, for Fargo, it changes every season. Right. Which is great, right? So they do like 1-year deals. It was, I'm guessing, for a lot of the people. Or
I mean, we would never have access to the people that we were able to have on the show if we weren't a 1 year, because it's 10 episodes. It's 3 months, 4 months. It's like nothing. It's doing a movie. So, I mean, look, even as simple as that is, there's always still problems, because the networks want to tie people up for all sorts of reasons. But yes, that's why we would have access to those people for sure. Yeah. And
just seeing the people that have come to do television, but I think it's because the material out there is phenomenal right now.
That's what John said, the great writers, the great Broadway. If someone has a off-Broadway hit, the next season they're on a staff of a television show or starting their own show. So it's the talent in multiple,
and the great directors
and the
that
great
are coming
directors.
from.
Yeah. That's true.
From the feature.
And I think, do you feel like it makes it easier to cast when the material is good, and not necessarily for series regulars, but even, the recurring characters or whatever, that changes everything, I would assume.
I mean, it does come down to material at some point, but, you guys have already said it. I mean, everybody, unless everybody in this room has a television show, everybody has television shows, and it's incredibly difficult to juggle that and try and find people that are available because they're tied up with other shows. Right. So it gets, you don't have one, you're ready for one. Okay. So that availability issue is huge. Yeah. You'll check somebody and then it's like, oh, okay, they got a show. Who doesn't have a show?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not, I feel like before we would get scripts and you'd think of people, and then that would be the conversation you'd have with the director. And now it's really like, I'm afraid to have any ideas until I know who's available and then do it. And that's very different from how we used to do it.
So
prototype meeting is really a prototype meeting.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. You can't have any of these people.
Yes, exactly. So that kind of leads me to my next question. When people, you all have found very interesting people that we haven't seen a lot of. How do you find new talent? Where do you look? How do you do it? Talk to me. Carmen?
Watch a lot of stuff. Read a lot. Sorry, I keep saying I don't know, theater, sort of everything that you would imagine. And then I actually do have a few sort of key people. I have someone in New York who, you probably worked with her, Heidi Marshall.
That was the woman who hired me for La Boheme.
That's why I thought you probably worked with her. Heidi Marshall is this brilliant
back around.
theater
She's a genius.
director, and who has always sort of worked with actors and just is somehow on the ground with up and comers in New York. And so, I'm not gonna lie, I send her my breakdowns, and she sends me tons of people who don't have agents, who aren't, and I read all of them because she knows me, she knows my taste, and I trust her, and I've cast lots of people from her. So that, and I have other people like that, people who I know are, you know, who run theater groups, who are at theater schools, and that introduce me to people. Agents obviously are always sort of pointing out new talent. That's pretty much it.
I agree with that. I would add for us, we do generals, and
do
we
too.
do, we see a lot of people. We see more, and one of the things that also we didn't really discuss how technology has changed our industry recently, but the whole self-taping thing. It's very stressful, but when I want to discover people, we might only have room to see 10 actors live because, you know, auditions cost money and time and space, and as you know, you have to get in your car. It's like, it's exhausting for all involved, but it's important. But yet you can also ask maybe 40 other people to self-tape, and so you're actually able to see so much more than you would if you were constricted by time and space, which you are for auditions. So we do a lot. We see a lot more people than I think we used to, because we feel like every role is a chance to discover new people that we didn't know.
And I'm sure you guys do this too with self-tapes. Sorry if I'm hogging it. With self-tapes too, because we can see so many more, I'm often asking people to tape who aren't going to be right for that part, but who look interesting and who I can sort of then catalog for something else. So I think it definitely has built our databases in that sense.
I think, you know, for me, I'm just listening and stealing your ideas. But for me, it really is about being open to the process, you know. Ideas, everybody, listen, on every show, on every project, everyone feels they are a casting director. So any assistant will say, you know who'd be really good in this role? And so I think it's about remaining open to the process. Ideas come from everywhere, and you find people everywhere. And so as much as people think, oh, you see somebody in a drugstore, and it's not usually that. It's usually a manager, it's an agent, it's a theater director, it's somebody that opens your eyes to someone else. And I think it's hard. I think a lot of casting directors and people in general want to own their ideas, you know, and this is mine, and this is, which has a lot to do, I think, with ego and a lot of, you know, other things in this town. But I think the more you can remain open to the possibilities, the more creativity kind of flows through you, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, we just see a shit ton of people. I mean, I every time I do a job and I'm like, okay, let's say my focus was an 18-year-old boy. And then we can't, you know, we do this huge search and we just, you know, you just open it up to the whole everywhere, you know, and Actors Access and theater companies or whatever it is, just open it up. And I'm like, obviously visuals super important for all of us. So, but I'm more apt to just try everybody than not. And which I also think is a detriment sometimes for myself, because once I cast that 18-year-old boy and I get the next job and it's an 18-year-old boy, I'm like, oh, fuck. Who's an 18-year-old boy? Like I start, it's like my brain like starts over again, and then I'm just meeting a whole new group of people. So it's like I can't tell if I have a problem or not, but my staff I'm sure is about to quit. But we do, I feel like we just see a ton of people, and it's the best way, because I feel like once you get your anchors in your show, depending on like what the intent is about how namey or how much people want to stunt cast it. Like once you get those anchors, then like the world is your oyster. Like you get to find whoever fun person, as long as your team's open to it. But you can find some person who's been toiling away in Chicago or here, or, you know, like we just, Amazon, I was talking to someone at Amazon today, and we did get Shorty, and we cast this woman as the lead mafia woman, and she was like, she's like, we've only cast her, she's only, like, on her resume, she's only been a maid like 4 times. But, like, you know, but she's awesome. She's killer, and she did a great job. And, like, why not? You know, just because she didn't have the opportunity to do it before, now she does. So that's, like, the fun part about casting, right? Like, it's just getting to find, you know, like on Stranger Things, which is, like, ridiculous. Like, those kids and the tone and everything's so perfect. But I'm sure it was just, like, when you found those kids, you must have had, like, a high every minute. Like, it's just exciting, you know?
Yeah.
And getting to cast David Harbour, which for me, when I saw David Harbour, I was like, I'll be there,
Yep.
right there.
Now,
That was very
he's
exciting.
the one that's always on the list, but it's like, nope, he's doing
never
Stranger.
available.
Oh, he got
Right,
that?
exactly,
Great.
exactly.
And now he's nominated because he's awesome. All right. So, but this leads me to the question of self-tapes, because this is a thing now. Am I right? What is it about? What draws you into a self-tape, and how long do you watch?
Good
how-
acting.
Good acting.
Good acting.
Thank you. How long do you watch? I mean, how fast can you tell?
Why do you want to know that?
Yeah, right.
Is that helpful at
that's a
all to
tough
your
question.
process?
Yeah.
Is it? Why? Do you want to know? There's no formula for it.
I don't. Yeah. I'm
I'll
just.
start
Trace,
with the-
you got yourself in that one. Go ahead.
Okay. Here's the thing. We're not looking for people who are just talented, right? It's not a talent contest. It's not American Idol. You're good. You're not good. We are looking through filter of the character, of the writing, of the tone, of the style, of who our creative team is. So if we see someone and their voice comes out and we just know this is part of the art of it, the same way you could look at a Rothko or a Pollock and you'll feel different things, and we know this person isn't it, why would we watch to the end? We have 50 more to watch. However, at least, then that's a nice day. If so, yes, we definitely turn it on, but you weren't going to get that part anyway. So why does it make a difference? It's like a first date. We're expecting something, we see it, we either yes, then the audition, you know, if we are here or here, helps us decide if there's a second date. That's the way it is. It's just, so there's every answer to that question.
Yep.
Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're like, maybe, and then we watch more. But if I know for sure that it's not right, then I don't watch.
I also have a category in my notes which is interesting but not for this. And I could have watched for 2 seconds and thought that, and that gets put into its own thing, and I will always go back and look at that.
And I'm just going to bring up the technical part of self-taping, because that's important to remember too. We got to be able to hear you. We got to be able to see you. And, you know, ideally, obviously, if you're going to read with someone or whatever you're doing, you know, just like you don't have to look directly at the camera. You can look slightly off the camera. But it's really a shame when you get something that you cannot hear, you cannot see the person. So take the time to just, you know, think about what the visual and the sound is going to be like before you send it. But Ashley's Charlene in my office. We were talking about this before I left tonight. And, you know, we've lately had some actors really go for gold on their self-tapes, like really kind of go balls out on that. Like they really like just, you know, whether it's the location they put themselves in or the outfits or whatever. And some of them have been brilliant. Like I've been joking with my directors. I was like, why don't we just drop it in? And like not, you know, like you don't even have to shoot them. Like, let's just use this. And it's true, like a couple people have really nailed it and been obviously hired because of the level of their self-tapes. So it's kind of blown my mind as to where some of these tapes are going, the direction it can go to. And so you can think about how you want to do it, but if you got the gumption to do it or the urge to go a little extra step, you know, try it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does come down to confidence and choices of an actor, you know, when you self-tape. You know, a couple things I would say, you know, and I don't know about you guys, but there's no need for 4 takes of one scene, you know, because most of the time we won't watch or can't watch every take of it. And even if it's a self, you know, editing process, or you have somebody else, a manager, an agent, a friend, whatever it is, watch it for feedback. I think you send your best stuff. You send your best foot, put your best foot forward. And I agree with you. I mean, there are some people that do great doing that. I think some go horribly wrong. And so it is again, it's about really having a sense of who you are, what's obtainable, what you can honestly look at and go, that's awesome. Or, that didn't quite, but I don't think at the end of the day, it's about acting. And it's about, an essence of a person. And that's what we're looking for. It's not a wardrobe and it's not a hat and, it's not all those things. It is about how do I match this soul of this person to something two-dimensional on a page. And that's what I look for. And tone comes into it, looks come into it, all those things come into it. But you do want to be taken away. You want to be drawn into that reading, that audition. And, some can be bold and fantastic. But I would say, simplest is better, for me. I'd want to see the actor. I don't care if you're a set designer, and I don't care if you're a costumer, and I don't, you know what I mean? Or you can shoot it 8,000 ways. Straightforward so that, it can be seen with not a lot of fuss. I mean, bad openings, and this goes back to demos, and I'll be quiet. But, most directors that I work with, they don't want to sit through titles. They don't want to sit through sequences of montages of the person running and music and they won't give it that much time. They just won't. They will say, get through this, or okay, that's enough. You want to put your best foot forward. Act. Show them what you got. Be there, be present. Nobody's going to get tricked into hiring you. What is going to get, it's not like, oh my God, look at this production value. Let's give this guy it's going to be about showing the goods, about bearing your soul, about, having a real intent and showing something about humanity and that character on a piece of, and it's not a film anymore, on a chip. I don't know what it is. Yeah. That's how technology goes over in my office. Yeah.
All right. I want to go, so back to the shows that you're all nominated for. Again, congrats. I want to know what your favorite part of the process of casting the particular show that you're nominated for. Like what makes
Mine's
it
easy, so I'll just jump in. As
Okay.
I felt hesitation, as people are thinking. Not hesitation, but thinking, and I know mine. Everybody read, except for Gerald McRaney in the pilot. Everyone. And I think if we had done the show during pilot season, we would not have had that experience. So I feel like the chemistry is real because we got to chemistry read people. And I think agents are very much in the business of protecting their actors from auditioning. But what they forget is that auditioning is a two-way street. You're interviewing the show, too. Do you want to work with this director? I know it's hard to think of that when you're hungry, but it's a long contract you're signing. And if we've seen what happens to actors who are on shows they don't love. It's tricky for them. So I felt like what the magic happened, and like what you said earlier, I trust the process. We got to have one. So that's the best thing.
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. I do think it cuts both ways, unfortunately, for actors. I've found, again, having a feature background and coming into television, I've found that, on some level, I think, I gotta be careful. On some level, I think that, television, the community, is used to seeing people read, is used to hearing it read, is used to that process. And I think that cuts both ways. On some level, it's lazy casting, I feel, in that people don't do their homework, they don't look at demo reels, they don't watch an actor's work, that it's just, well, if they're not gonna read, then they're not right. And, I can't tell you how many times that I'll be advocating for an actor, I'll pull out Tom Waits, it's not recently, but when I did a series called Carnival for HBO, I was begging them, why don't we go to Tom Waits? Well, is he gonna read? No, he's not gonna read. It's Tom Waits. So I think there are those things.
Well, certainly, I think every
Yeah.
happened to think of
Yeah.
this.
And I think that it is great when you get that opportunity to be in the process. But I also think that, actors experience both sides of that. you know, and it can be a great thing. It can work against somebody, you know.
And just getting back
Oh,
to
Westworld. You know, I think the thing that, I mean, I love working with Jonah and Lisa, and they were friends, and so I get an opportunity to work with them. I guess the thing that I like most is that the expansiveness of what that canvas is. You know, it is, it's everything from reality to fantasy to play acting to role acting. Like, it's everything, you know. And I think the objective when we started with the pilot was that an actor doesn't just have to play a role. He's got to be able to play 5 roles. Because one day you could be a cowboy, the next day you are a dead father, and the next day you're a piece of meat in the locker naked, much to many people's chagrin. And that is, you know, I mean, it was a hunt and a search for actors that were bold and brave and willing to lead with their talent. And that's, I think, what excites me about it. That's what still excites me about it. And so the massive, expansive canvas of that show I love.
I came up with my answer. Mine for Stranger Things is actually, if I think of the one thing specific to it that was the most exciting, is really that I have 2 sons. They're 10 and 13, and the Duffers are, I think now they're 32 years old. I've known them since they were, I think, 26. So being able to bring their idea into this world when no one was paying attention, no one thought this was going to be a show anyone saw. It was just a bunch of us getting together and wanting these kids, which they're not kids anymore, but, you know, thinking of how we could help them with this. They had a beautiful script. It was great. And then this was the first time I cast kids that were the exact same age as my kids at the time. And my kids are, you know, I find great wonder in my children. and you know, I think I observe them a lot, and I just think that they're much more complicated than we often see in television. And so the mirror of trying to sort of match the complexity of my own children with finding actors to portray that was really exciting for me. And I didn't actually know that that's, as we often don't know, that it's happening to us in the moment. I didn't actually know that that's what I was experiencing. But when it was done and I saw it on screen, I was like, oh, that's what I did. That's how I connected to those kids, was it's my own kids. Yeah. And they're boys also. And so it was so great.
Let's see. I, for some reason, haven't formed my answer, but I think the 2 of the fun things or exciting things about Fargo was the opportunity to get to put actors in roles that we haven't gotten to see them do yet, or maybe explore some other sides to them that you know in your gut as casting directors that they have, no doubt, but they just either haven't had the opportunity or that's not what they're known for, and seeing kind of what happens there. But I felt generally with Fargo, there just was a very cohesive passion about this show from all the creators. And Noah Hawley obviously wrote like amazing scripts and everything. So it was very celebratory. So in the same way that when I work with Joel and Ethan and how they, you know, you find one person who says one line and they can like talk about it for 3 weeks because it made them laugh the way they like, you know, blinked or something. It was the same kind of vibe on the show where you'd find somebody really fun to bring in for something, and there would be that same kind of passion and celebration of that actor in that role. And I thought that's kind of what made it fun. And as it went on, like this year was the least amount of actual casting. This was a lot of just like, oh, hey, you know who'd be really fun in this role? And then Noah being like, oh my God, let's do that. And then that's it. So it was kind of a weird season this year compared to the last ones, or like the first year with Alison Tolman where we read like 1,000 girls for that role. So, but I guess, does that answer the question?
Totally.
That was it? Okay.
I love that.
I'll just keep talking.
Very
I love,
good.
I love the celebratory thing. That's awesome. That they're excited about a one-line role,
my
like
God.
they're just as important to
Nobody
them.
has more passion about one-line roles than Joel and Ethan Coen. That is from soup to nuts. There is nobody more celebratory.
That's awesome. Okay. How there's there's probably a lot of people here that are creating their own work, and how for people starting out with their own, because I think that's what people are doing now. You know, you create your own stuff because if there's not the opportunity for you, how do you suggest when they're looking to cast their projects? You know, how do you help new people kind of navigate the casting process?
I think it's like anything else, sort of the steps. I think what I would do is look at casting directors' offices, casting directors who I think their work is connected to the kind of thing that I would like to do, and then reach out to the assistants, I guess, and interns there, just get, I don't know, get people involved.
Carmen Cuba.
No,
is
not,
what
don't,
you do. You
we're
call
very busy.
Carmen.
No one in my
310.
office has any time, but call John's office. What I'm saying is call John.
I
But
think
I
you
don't
have to
know.
network.
Right?
I
You have to network.
agree.
You
You
have to
have to
find-
network. You have to get involved. You have to meet someone that hopefully you can inspire with your vision, you know, because it's a lot of work. So it's not like, I mean, especially if you're starting out with your own thing, you're probably not bringing a lot of what I call pitch to it. Like, I need a little bit of a pitch. It can't just be a good script, because guess what? Everyone thinks their script is good. It's so weird. It's very rare. They come to me and be like, we want you to cast this. It's a piece of shit, but we're all going to make money. Never happens. Even if it is a piece of shit and we're going to make money, they still think this time we're changing it. It's a really good script. So you need to have some kind of pitch. So you're not going to have a pitch, right? Because you're new, too. So don't think that the casting is going to upgrade your project. It's crucial, but you're going to still have to do the work. You can't find a fancy casting director who's going to just all the doors open because people take their calls. They're not going to be able to do because what they usually do is have a pitch. So I think network, meet people. I think Carmen's idea, brilliant. Find someone that you connect to who is passionate about what you're doing and is inspired, because otherwise it won't be good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'll just.
I agree.
CC
I mean,
Carmen.
no, I totally agree. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I mean, and I think at the end of the day, I think, you know, people that create their own material can get very stuck in, no, it's this, you know, no, it's that. And I think the more you can be open to surrounding yourself with creative, talented people, it can be anything. You know, in television, this is, you know, a thing. You know, I'll bring up somebody that maybe isn't what it is on the page. And, you know, certain people will go, well, no, that's not what this character would do. You wrote it a week ago. How do you know that that's not what this character will do? Change it. And so I think as a process of creating your own stuff, find creative people around yourself, find talented people, and change your vision. Include them in that. You know, I'm sure it's when Steppenwolf was founded, or any you know, great theater company, they weren't sitting there going, she doesn't have red hair, not going to take her. It's about creativity. It is about commitment to excellence. And so that's what's going to make your projects stand out differently. And so surround yourself with those people and believe in them. Allow them to help create that.
I'm being obnoxious, I'm sorry, but what you said just inspired me something I've been thinking about a lot, which is the collaboration of the process and how crucial it is. Like, sometimes people ask, why do you think This Is Us has touched people and stuff? And part of me wants to say, because the guys have all worked together for years and they trust and love each other. And I've heard many people during the comments tonight, I worked with this team for so long, these two writers who collaborate, you know, Joel and Ethan, you know, these people, I think of Hamilton and go, is it just on the genius of Lin-Manuel Miranda? Yes, but he's also worked with the same director, choreographer, and musical director and producer since the beginning when he graduated from college. The trust and casting, that is so, you cannot put a price tag on real collaborators. So I think that's.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things. I mean, I am very grateful and blessed that I get to do what I do, and make a nice living doing it. That being said, I'm not going to die with $100 bills, you know, pouring out on my mattress. the end of the day, it is about collaboration. You know, the fact that I have worked with Chris Nolan and Jonah, his brother, and for 17 years, I mean, that is what, you know, I even get chills just saying that. That is what matters to me. People that you know, people that you trust, people that you have a shorthand with, that's what makes me feel like it's a success. That what I do has some value to it, is the collaboration of people around you. And even in my office, you know, the collaboration of me and my staff, that's what makes me laugh every day. That's what makes me want to get up and go to the office, is that, you know, you get to do stuff with people that you choose to. And I think that's what brings success around it, for me.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think that's like the utopia of casting, is getting to find like the fact that you've had that working relationship with them with Christopher Nolan for like 15 years is like, that's, I think, one of the main goals, certainly is for myself as a casting director, is that repeat opportunity with the director, you know, where things then, even because it just elevates everything. Every time you work with them, it's more and more elevated because there's this shorthand and this comfort and it's just an ease to it that makes your creativity just work even better. And so it's very exciting. I envy it.
And it, by no means is it like name dropping. I don't, you know, I mean, Chris and Jonah and stuff. I mean, I have the same relationship with people, you know, and agents would say to me, wait a minute, how do you go from doing, this is not chronological, but how do you go from doing Dark Knight to then doing Taken 2 or Taken 3 or whatever it was? And my answer is because they're my friends, because I know that director and I want to help him make a project, because that is what matters to me. And so I do feel like you know, I look at my resume and go, ugh. But, you know, but it's because, you know, that personal connection to me is what makes it rewarding at the end of the day, and makes it different.
I've actually been thinking about collaboration a lot lately too, and including in it agents. Because I think we don't, and managers, representatives, I think you don't think about those as those kind of relationships, but they make our lives really, it really is a huge part of it. And it goes back again to people who know you. Those are the relationships, when you've been around long enough, you know, when someone calls and they say, you know, I really think you should check this person out. It's a shorthand. You go, yes, fine, I'm not gonna, you don't have to prove it to me, just I'll do it.
Right.
And that's huge. It's huge for saving time. It's huge for staying open, all of that. But it's relationships, it's people you trust, people who aren't going to waste your time because you're not going to waste their time. Collaboration.
I love all of that. I love all of that. Okay, so I'm going to ask this question. I think it's a hard one. Or not. I don't know. But... so the World Wide Web, social media, all the different ways to reach out to people and what have you. I just want to know, actors always say, how do we get in touch with you? What is the line? I mean, because these days it is so blurred as far as, you know, being able to reach someone quickly through other means other than just through an agent.
I mean,
Please to respond.
this is not the question I thought you were asking. So this to me is way easier. Postcards for me in my office. I just think, and don't put them in an envelope, otherwise you miss, like, to me that's like the first, they're not meant to go in an envelope. It's a postcard. That's the whole intent. So if you put the postcard in an envelope and send it to me, you fail test 1, okay? But I will look at every postcard that arrives in postcard form. That's the best way to reach out. Social media is such a long shot because I use that for my life, because, you know, I have kids and relatives, and if you don't want to Skype 100 times a week, you better have Facebook and post some stuff people can share and comment on, right? So that's a very big time saver for life. Unless you're like a one-armed boy in Louisiana that I cannot find and happens to Facebook message me, and I happen to be looking for a one-armed boy in Louisiana, you know, some insanely difficult thing. I'm not looking at actors Facebooking me, right? That's not the right way. You should go on Actors Access. You should fill it out honestly. You should look at auditions. You should show up to them. You should do everything you can.
We also like postcards, and we also like Actors Access. And I think that's kind of it. Also, I probably go on Facebook once a year. So when somebody, sends me something, I see it 2 years later and then respond. So it is not a good way for. But my office is a little more savvy with social media. But I think good old-fashioned postcards is a great way to do it, and just kind of staying proactive and doing like the Actors Access and theater and workshops or comedy or whatever you're doing, but just kind of staying proactive on your job.
I agree. Postcards. Really.
Yeah.
Actors
So,
Access,
right. So,
not
the
Facebook.
correct.
Yeah,
Or
I'm
direct
not on social
emails.
media. I don't do it. I don't have a, no, it's not because I don't know how to do it. I don't do it. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't publicize my life and, whatever. But I do think postcards are great. I do think, because it's also what we do. We're looking for faces, and so seeing somebody in front of you, you kind of go, oh, that might be good for next time. That might be good for this. So yeah, I would agree with that. But I don't have a lot of rules. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not a big rule follower. Like, everybody's got their own path. Everybody is trying to make it. And so I try and give people the benefit of the doubt.
But you're also not on social media.
But I'm not on social media.
And I feel like the postcards are like old school. Like it reminds me of like before we were able to cast, on the internet, we used to get bins and bins of packs of headshots, and you would alphabetize them. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And go through and make your X's and your stacks, and there was just something a lot more visceral. And I think things probably didn't fall through the cracks even like as much in the past because you used to have everything so tangible. So postcards make me happy in that way.
But I'll add one other thing to postcards. One for the office is good. 9 postcards coming in is a waste of your money and a waste of your time because, my associates share it with me, my assistants show it to me.
Right.
Like, everybody doesn't need one.
Right.
Well said. What do you wish actors understood about the process of casting? As far as, people get frustrated, oh, my agent's not getting me in, I'm not getting auditions. How can you help to explain that what the process is, or what they could know that could help them understand why it can be hard sometimes?
Well, I think auditions cost money. I think that's hard for people to realize. We just can't see everybody. When you put a one-line part out and in an hour you have 1,500 submissions from agents alone, how can you see everyone? It's impossible.
And everyone's not right for everything, unfortunately. And even if it is a one-line role, like usually we're coming at it with a pretty specific, you have a point of view that you're trying to achieve. So even though it seems like, oh my God, like why wouldn't I be going in for that? I'm so that person. You might not be for this project because it's not what we're going for. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think this is going to get off the subject, but I also think that, academia by and large has been really, for me, in my opinion, has been slow to come around to the idea that not every actor can play everything. I think most teachers and universities and programs still teach acting for repertory actors, which really don't exist by and large very much, and that most people really want to be in television film. Repertory companies and Broadway are looking for TV stars to put in their shows. So for me, I think the reality is that everybody's playing some version of themselves. And it's a misnomer to think, well, I can play any role that I'm given. In film and television, we'll go find an 80-year-old person. It's not that we're going to hire somebody and put a wig on them. And, it's just very different, and so I think you have to have a clear understanding of who you are. I think a lot of teachers and studies would be much more served in reading a book about philosophy or psychology, or taking a look in the mirror and figuring out who you truly are and what makes you unique, than it does, a lot of other, methods. So I think that's also part of, looking at those roles. What you understand about casting or not is that, not everybody's going to get every role. Not everybody's right for every role. And from your point of view, knowing who you are can only help make that easier, I think, in the long run.
And I was going to say, you said something that hit me that I think is true, is the thing that is you, that makes you unique, you might think is your flaw that's keeping you out. So that's why your photographer has you tilt your head so you have a heart-shaped face, because everybody who has a heart-shaped face seems to have an agent and work all the time. But you have a square jaw, so when you walk in, I see a million pictures of the heart-shaped face when I'm looking for a square-jawed person. So be you. The thing that makes you you should be fully embracing it and aware of it, because it's going to be the reason you get the job that makes you pop.
And I think also just accept that you're not going to know everything about the process. I think that it's a mystery, and that the all of the sort of factors are never going to be fully revealed to you. Even when you see who they ended up casting, you will not be able to actually put together the reason why you were not cast. So let it go. It's about being open. It's just do your best. Just do good acting.
It goes back to what Tracy said too about the process, and when you get the opportunity. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Tiffany just said about mold, about the process is that, magic does happen. When you get to be able to be in that room, ultimately, if you trust the process, and I say this to producers and directors a lot, if you trust the process, it will occur. You build the field, people will show up. There is something intangible, and all the films I've done, all the television projects, 99% of the time, something happens. Something between an actor and a director, in the moment, reading with somebody else, magic does occur. So for me, I don't even know that we can kind of define that, definitively.
Yeah. And the only other thing I would say is the approach of when you come into a casting room is just to recognize that we are all hoping you're going to be amazing, right? Like, it's a positive experience. Regardless of what's going on in your brain, we're hoping that you're going to solve this puzzle piece for us just as much as you're hoping to get the part. So I think people come in very discouraged or chip on their shoulder, expecting the worst, and it's just not the environment that it should be. Look, you have to do your business. You have to come prepared. You have to make your choices. You have to do what you need to do to come in and do the best you can, because some people, everyone's different. Like, some offices do 1 take, some offices do 10 takes. Like, you have to be able to bring what you need to bring, but it should be a positive experience, when you come into our offices.
Okay, what do you love about actors?
That you can act. Honestly, to be honest, I can't act. So I do think it's like one of the most tremendous abilities and skills, and I respect it and appreciate it. And what are the things you remember most? The most moving movies and television performances that you see that, they really can affect you so deeply into your soul. So I think it's, something I wish I could do, but that's what I respect, obviously, the most, and your tenacity.
I respect the ability to be vulnerable in these brief moments with people you've never met before. That's something I can't do. This is out of my comfort zone right now, and I know what I'm talking about. But going in and just giving it your all. I'm always, at the end of a day, honestly, this sounds corny, but at the end of a day where I've had a big group of people, I feel honored afterwards that they would do that with me. That they would give themselves in that way, and it's just amazing. Yeah. It is amazing, and it's a hard thing to do. It's hard for me to imagine doing something like that, so I have a lot of respect.
I think it's, everything that's been said, obviously, but I really love craft as well. So I feel like I have a craft background, so I know how to approach the script, so I feel like I have a strong sense of what should be happening. But I love the actor who nails that, but then brings that thing that I couldn't bring. It brings the thing that is truly them, their choices, their creativity, and that's, to me, that's the perfect audition, is someone who makes me maybe see this role in a different way or deeper or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's all those things for me, and yeah, I mean, there's creativity involved. I love a soul of an actor. I like, the fact that they're brave. They're much braver than I think most people give actors credit for. To stand in front of a room and be judged is a hard thing, and it's wearing on a soul. And so that people do that, it's incredibly courageous and real, and it's visceral. And I think that, so I love that about him, but I agree, craft is fantastic. And somebody that makes choices, comes in and does their work and leaves, and that's when I feel like I'm in the presence of an artist, those are the things that I remember the most. And those are the biggest impressions left on me. And so that I think, actors should strive for that, and that's what makes me at the end of the day go, I am incredibly lucky to be part of that process.
All right, so now we have some questions from our lovely members here. Here's a question from Senta. What does it take to move someone with co-star credits up to guest star auditions? For example, is it the number of co-star roles?
I don't make that distinction when we're auditioning people. Like if they have co-star credits, but I think they have the right type or whatever, then I just bring them in to try it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't watch that. I don't look at that.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's not a formula.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll just speak. I also think that the idea of co-star versus guest star, those lines are a little blurred right now anyway.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, it's the real definition is money.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we forget, that sometimes it's like, well, it's a bigger part, but we can only pay this amount because we can't pay top of show. We can't spread them 8 days. So I mean, I think that's my thought.
Yeah, no, I agree,
I'm just the
and I think
moderator.
it is something that a lot of people don't understand, that we are hemmed in by producers and budgets and requirements from a studio, and I don't know that you guys have dealt with this a lot, but in talking about trying new people, there's many directives on shows that I work on, and that you can't hire non-SAG actors, and that they don't want to go through Taft-Hartling someone, or they don't want to pay initiations. So there's a lot of rules that we have to abide by that limit what we can do as well.
Carmen, this is a question specifically for you.
Awesome. So we'll push back a little bit.
When this is from Mario Corona. When it comes to a co-production and you have like a local casting director, who's got the last decision on to hire an actor, you or the local casting director? I mean, do you look at, like, if there's a local casting director, do you look at all those auditions as well?
On my projects, and I think this is maybe not usual, but on my projects, everything goes through me. So I deal with the director with all parts. So the local person sends me his or her stuff. I narrow it down. I then talk to the director, and we choose together.
Great. Fantastic. That was a great question. Mario. Okay, this is for everyone. From Vivi. Do you look for different qualities between feature actors and TV actors? If so, what? Okay.
No.
Great. Moving on. This is a good one for anyone and everyone. From Tiffany. Can you talk briefly about what your rooms are like? Do you all only do pre-screening via tape? It says, I've experienced people's CDs state that you only get one shot. or otherwise they're moving on. Is it like that for you too? Like, how does your room work? Do you pre-read? Do
formula.
you put on
No
tape?
formula.
It all depends on the project and what timing, I would assume.
I usually tape everything. I mean, I usually tape everything because I go back to everything a million times over. But as far as like takes and stuff like that, it's just in the moment, right? Like you do it, and if there's stuff to play with or tweak, we do it, and if not, then we don't. I don't think there's like a hard rule for anything for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I think the thing that I've run into lately, just luckily being busy, that, you know, I'm not in every session. And especially in television there's so many roles and so many things. So I'm not in every session. I try and go out and say hi to people that I know when I know they're coming in. But it changes. I watch everything, and, you know, we tape everything, and I end up watching it even if I'm not in the room. But I think, you know, we work really hard to try and make actors feel welcome, and that they are a vital part of what we do, not an ancillary part.
I would agree. I feel like we work in the coldest room in the world, where one person goes in knowing they could be rejected, and the other person goes in knowing they might have to reject someone. And those are human experiences we usually seek to avoid. So I feel that our job is to make the coldest room in the world warm. And so, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to do takes to be polite, because I don't want to waste your, you know, that it is, I don't think, well, I guess I don't put on it that if I do more than one take, that means you're good or that means you're bad. I've had people who do one take and I'm like, that's it, we're going, this is great, bye. But I think if you're going in the room trying to see how you're doing, or the likelihood of if you're going to book by guessing like how you're treated, you're focused on the wrong thing.
Good answer. Boom. But I won't drop it. This is from Joe. This is a good question. What is the hardest part of casting additional roles on a TV show that's a huge hit? So is there pressure to get, you know,
I mean, I don't know if
don't
it's
know. Expectations?
hard, but I think that, you know, once a show is a hit, big names become fans of the show and then want to be on them. And it just sort of depends on how your team responds to that kind of thing. And you know, for us on Stranger Things, I can say that we've been very good about just sticking to the integrity of the piece that we imagined no one would see. So season two will be similar. There's no Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it's I think still driven by the writing. So if we have an episode, and I do have an eye roll when I read someone famous playing themselves, because I'm like, I hope that was your college roommate, you know, because people don't want to play themselves, even if they're on a hit show, you know, like they want to act. They're actors, you know. But so I have a joke about that, but it's always driven by the writing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, in most cases it might, in the creators' minds, emphasize a role, like, oh, we have something really special coming up, so now we need somebody special, kind of thing. And I think at the end of the day, you know, somebody said to me recently, we just wanted you to know we need a really good actor for this role.
I love that.
And
Say just a good actor, just a really good actor.
Well, I'm a little edgier than that. I was like, thank God, because I usually bring you shitty ones. So, fantastic. We're on the same page.
Casting director. It's not my bag.
They hung up quickly after that comment. They hung up.
So true. So true.
I mean, I think for Fargo, when season 1 did so well, certainly the network and the studio was like, oh my God, we gotta really have, you know, each season it's like, who's the big person that's gonna come this season? So the expectations would get bigger and bigger. But, you know, there's a reality to it all. I mean, there's, you know, even though there's so much transition with feature actors, big feature actors in television, it still doesn't mean everyone's willing to play still, you know, so there's realities.
Okay, this is from Kevin to all of you. What are the reasons and circumstances that led you to watch the last demo reel that you watched?
To see how old someone played.
Good answer.
I literally, the last one I watched was showing a director and producers and everybody someone's work. So it was, again, it goes back to, not really wanting a ton of upfront credits and music, and, and also wanting it to be current. Work from 10 years ago, though it may be great, is really not relevant to, what they're looking at now. So I think that's what drove me to it, explaining who people were, showing them their work.
I'm doing a project right now where the whole intent is to bring this authenticity to an event that really happened. So I think I watched a demo reel just to get a sense of who the actor was, because I didn't know them, and whether they kind of fit the bill of bringing that really specific flavor to that role. But you wanna know what I really love right now are those slates. Those slates that people can do now when you hit the play on the slates on the breakdown. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Oh my God, they're the best. Those are good. Those for me are like what I love right now. As a side note.
The demo reel I watched was for an actor that I didn't think, back to what John was saying, I didn't think he needed to audition for this part. He has a body of work, but I wasn't sure if I had a piece. I was looking for a piece of work that was current and would speak to the part, so that I could just show the director that and say,
Just to jump on that demo reel, that's why I like when they send me a list, because sometimes what happens is I'm trying to sell the person as this like edgy downtown part, but if their first part of their reel is Gossip Girl, where they were a stockbroker, my director turns it off. But if I go, oh, Deadwood, boom, there we go, we can show the edgier side. So I prefer that than an actual cut together demo reel.
Great. And I hit all the questions. So woo! I want to ask one last thing. What is the most favorite project that you've each cast? And why?
Oh, I think they all have different reasons. It's all, I don't know, I can't.
It's so specific.
Yeah.
It's also to parts of our lives, probably,
right.
like whether
That's
it
right.
connected.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. I'll say A Serious Man. And I'll back it up with, because that was like everybody on location in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and it was like, again, just such a community feel. And literally I would be like at synagogue every weekend in the back, looking at people, and then like going up to them and, afterwards, and trying to get them to do a role in the movie or something like that. Like, it just was very like ground, like a lot of work, but a lot of passion and a lot of fulfillment on that one.
That helped me think of one, although I love Rachel Getting Married was the first time I worked with Jonathan Demme, and he basically said, don't let gender and age and type limit you. And I was like, those are our tools. Like, what do you mean? So he said, bring in your favorite actors on the planet. And we gave people packets that had multiple roles of different ethnicity and everything. In fact, if you know that movie, Sebastian Stan's part was written as a woman and Roz Ruff's part was written as a man in the script. But it just was, and then he added people. I think the line producer was going to jump out a window. But like, we just got to, it was like truly creative. Like, we just got to create what it was as opposed to fill tracks. So that was great.
It's hard, yeah. I mean, it's hard for different reasons. I mean, Memento was one because it was so easy. Chris didn't know anybody, so he was just like, bring in the best people that you like, and we made choices. It was really quick. On the other end of the spectrum, Dunkirk, probably in that it was a new process, in that, Chris hadn't really worked with young actors before, and guys that didn't have a lot of experience, so it was a whole different thing. But everything has its own fun or whatever, but those are two that stick out.
I've done sort of experimental movies with Steven Soderbergh. There's two of them, and they unfortunately don't involve actors. But what was interesting about them was that I got dropped. There's one called Bubble, where I got dropped in the middle of West Virginia, Parkersburg, West Virginia, with a maybe 3-sentence description of what it was. We didn't have a script. And 5 characters or 7 or something, and with very little description to who they were. And here I was in this small town, and we don't talk a lot, Stephen and I, about the actual project that we're working on. So I was left just walking around town going, where would you find the prettiest girl in town? And so I walked around and walked past a beauty school, and I thought, they would probably be there. And I walked in and asked the manager if I could interview all of the girls who were training with him, and he hadn't heard of any movie that Stephen had made and didn't care, but said yes. And so I interviewed them all, and then I decided I would just edit little clips that seemed interesting, and I would send them to Stephen, and he picked people that way. Because he wasn't in the town, in Parkersburg yet. And so that was interesting and fun for me, and another way to sort of see
Awesome,
performance.
right.
And yeah.
I love those kind of stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we are going to wrap this on up. Wait. Before we wrap, congratulations to all of you again. I personally am so inspired by all of your work. So it's really awesome to hear you guys and talk with you all. And thank you for sharing with all of these fine folks. Thanks for coming out tonight. And good luck. Is it next
Thank you.
weekend or this weekend? Oh, this weekend. Okay.
Yeah, this weekend.
Fantastic. Well, good luck to all of you.
Thank you.